Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports. Coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada, we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, on a beautiful May the 30th, 2019, Grando Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, I've been confused down here all day. I thought I was getting up living for the weekend because I stayed up too late watching that hockey game last night in overtime, and I thought the day was Friday. I walked around thinking that I had it made. I got another day to deal with.
I think they made a movie called Groundhog Day. They had the same issues going on there, but it's all fair in love and war. And sometimes when you put a little too much libation in your milk, Big C, that can happen to you. I do want to say what a great day in sports, and especially for the NBA. It can no longer really be called the National Basketball Association. It should be called the World Basketball Association, because Canada decided to join the party. Baseball's off to a really nice end of May, and hopefully we'll have some more cracking on the bat for the summer months coming up. And NHL, might tell you, I think they're pouring a lot of that. I think they drink some type of wiser libation in St. Louis. I'm sure they're happy with that. I do want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. As we do, as we always do, everyone thinks they pay respect to others, and we're no different than anybody else. But I do want to say, for our military and anyone really dealing with a crisis, there's a crisis hotline. I was dismayed, Big C, to find out how many veterans are actually struggling. It's not that I didn't want to know, I just didn't know until you started bringing it up. So if you know anyone that's going through issues, and they don't have to be a veteran, but really for veterans, they need to know there's help. 800-273-8255, 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255, that's 838-255. Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, any time that somebody can lend a hand to a veteran in any kind of way, socially, mentally, Charlton, any type of assistance. Many of them are not aware, Charlton, because they don't have access to cell phones, to television. You think about the number of veterans that we have in this country that are homeless, that are living on the streets, Charlton, because our government has turned their back on them.
Yeah.
And, you know, and not by any fault of theirs all the time, Charlton. Many veterans struggle with mental illness from what they've had to go through in war-type situations, Charlton.
Yeah.
But never turn your back on a veteran. Anything that you can do to aid and comfort a veteran, Charlton, it's an American right to do, Charlton. It's what you should do. It's like when they say help the neighbor, help a veteran in any kind of way. And giving out that number, Charlton, everybody in America is no more than 5 people removed, Charlton, from having a veteran involved in their life.
Wow.
Everybody in America knows someone who knows a veteran. And give that phone number, or make that phone call, or send that text message, Charlton. People spend so much time texting nowadays anyway. They don't like to communicate with people.
Yeah,
but extend those fingers out for a veteran. You don't have to invest any money. You don't have to invest any food. Just make a phone call or send a text to help a veteran.
You know what I find ironic about that? There are times here in California, Northern California, and I'm not knocking the efforts of anybody, but I noticed Air Force One was flying, I believe, to Colorado today to give a commencement speech to the Air Force Academy, I believe. And I know it costs a lot of money every time that plane lifts off the ground, and all the security, and all of the extra protection that goes into making sure the city is blocked off, at least that they have emergency exits, and it's for Secret Service, law enforcement. They all know there's a lot of money that goes into it. What breaks my heart at times is when I'm driving on a main street in Northern California, and they'll have the fire department, firefighters out with a boot in the middle of the road. They tell you don't stand in the middle of the road, but the firefighters have a boot in their hand in the middle of the road, and they're asking for money. And they're asking for money to give whatever cause they're supporting, which I'm not knocking that. But if you can imagine how much money is used to take Air Force One and get it off the ground and fly it, thousands of miles around the world, and we can't find enough money to help people, 800-273-8255, 800-273-8255 for the crisis hotline. You can text 838-255, 838-255. Have you seen firefighters with a boot in their hand asking for extra money to help people while Air Force One is flying 30,000 feet? Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, I think most Americans have seen that picture of firefighters with the boot out raising funds, Charlton, to help their charitable foundations. I think about when we look at our administration that has spent already in its administration in a little over 2.5 years, over $105 million just playing golf.
Just playing golf.
$105 million playing golf. And I remember when he was being elected and he said he wouldn't have time to play golf because he wanted to spend every day working in the White House.
Yep.
So I'm curious about that $105 million because he wouldn't have time to play golf. How many veterans would that $105 million
oh my
have
goodness.
helped?
Yeah.
Mentally, socially, Charlton, housing-wise, nutrition, health care, Charlton. How much would that $105 million would have helped our veterans that have allowed for him to live freely in this country, even though he dodged the war on 5 different occasions during the Vietnam era, Charlton?
Yeah.
Because he had shin splints. And since he couldn't march, I'm wondering how he's able to always march around a golf course.
Yeah, well, I know it's all fair and love in war, and I know that POTUS had something to say. And again, for anyone putting money in a boot for a firefighter, they already give their lives going into buildings that are burning. You notice when there's a fire, the firefighters run to it. They don't run from it. When there was a fires all over California just a couple of years ago, the Napa fire, and there was another fire up near Plumas Lake. They have fires in Southern California. It's the firefighters that rush to those fires to put it out. It's amazing because the homeowners leave, but firefighters run in. And then they have to deal with the indignity of standing in the middle of a road with a boot in one hand, asking people who are just trying to go about their day to put some money in a boot so they can help support a cause. And I would hope to see that come from our nation's capital, especially when you spend $100 million golfing. And I want to get your thoughts on something. Now, no matter what political side you're on, I know about the Keating Five, and people do what they got to do in situations. But when POTUS says, as a person who had 5 draft deferments, when he said that John McCain was not a hero because he was captured and fought for this country, how does any veteran respect that coming out of the mouth of POTUS when he slams one of their brethren who actually put on the Stars and Stripes and fought for this country and not went out and paid $100,000, or actually $100 million, trying to go around the country golfing? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's easy for a coward to make that type of statement about somebody who served so admirably in our armed forces, who went out and fought for this country to keep this country free while he was gallivanting around New York and having fun.
Yeah.
So, John McCain will always have a legacy in this country, Charlton, and it's a legacy of honor that he will always have.
Yeah, and I respect the service. My father served this country also, and as a man of color, he still dealt with Jim Crow. And even before we had civil rights, my father served in the Air Force for this great country. And at the same time, when he wasn't in service, still had some issues with mainstream not showing the respect that all our service people deserve. So I just want to say one more time, you can never say it too much, and I hope anyone listening in the universe can write this number down. Put it in your phone. It's almost like a kid is programmed to dial 911 because we tell them that for emergencies. And so they know it from age 5 to 95 to dial 911. But another number, military crisis hotline, or for anyone going through crisis, 800-273-8255, 800-273-8255, or text 838-255. That's 838-255. Big C, I know as far as the world of sports goes, there's a lot going on in the sports universe. I know everybody's hyped about the game tonight. The Golden State Warriors, they travel north, and they go to the side of Canada that's on the east coast of Canada, and it's an expansive country. But I know that Toronto Raptors, it's new for them. It's like having that the very first time you ever did anything new. That's what Toronto's going through. Give me your feeling on what they must be going through, not just as a team, but even as a city in the country. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the country is jubilant. This is not the first championship that has ever been played in Toronto. You got to realize that the Toronto Maple Leafs, Charlton, had won multiple Stanley Cups back in the 60s and 70s. You look at the Toronto Blue Jays, won back-to-back World Series in the early 90s.
Yep.
So this is a city that's very, adept at championship parades. I believe they have a Canadian Football League team there, the Toronto Argonauts also.
Yep.
And they have won championships. So this is a city that's not naive to championship parades and celebration and championship events, Charlton. This is just the latest in the tale of many that they've had, Charlton, with the Toronto Raptors being there.
Yeah.
You got to think about the history of the Toronto Raptors and how it got started 24 years ago, Charlton, and where they've risen to now in the NBA. This all started with Isaiah Thomas, the former NBA champion, became the executive of the Toronto Raptors, Charlton, one of the biggest pushers as far as getting that team into the NBA. And they're still run by a minority president when you think about the Toronto Raptors. But from start to now, they've been led by minorities, Charlton, to lead them to the success that they've been having.
Yep.
And you think about the fanfare. I don't know if the fanfare in Toronto is any greater than any fanfare in any other city, Charlton. It's just highlighted more. It's just like when they're highlighting Drake as a super fan, Charlton.
Yep.
Every team has these super fans.
They all do.
Spike Lee started that years ago.
Yeah.
Being the super fan on the sideline. Jack Nicholson did it in Los Angeles, Charlton.
For the Lakers.
We've seen this on many occasions. But it's great to have new blood in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Everybody's always talking, well, the NBA is not exciting because
what?
The Warriors keep winning.
Right.
Well, they keep winning because they don't want to lose.
Right.
There's something about the continue winning when you care more about winning than what you do about losing.
Yep.
Toronto Raptors, there's similar blueprint to the Golden State Warriors when you look at it.
They are.
This was a team that was taken as far as it could go with a minority coach in Bernie Casey, just like with the Warriors with Mark Jackson.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, he was replaced by somebody else, Charlton, who had no previous head coaching experience, who came from the bench.
Yep.
Nick Nurse, just like with Steve Kerr. And now all of a sudden, that first year, they're in the championship, Charlton.
Yeah.
A year after getting rid of the minority coach, both of these organizations have made it to the NBA Finals. Will the story turn out the same for the Toronto Raptors as it has for the Golden State Warriors?
Yeah, and when you look at Paul Casey and you look at what he did for that franchise in Toronto, and then Mark Jackson, what he did for the franchise in Oakland, and then they both have been complimented by the people who succeeded them, Big C. And all I know is this: if there's ever opportunity for achievement, just give people the fair opportunity to start and finish based on their own effort, not because you're holding people back. I want to get your feeling. I think the cat's out of the bag, whether Durant or Boogie Cousins will play in this series at all. I know Cousins is still, probable to play in the series, and if he does, I think he could help situationally if you put him down in the post to get rebounds, not to go out and shoot threes where he's going to shoot about 35% because he's rusty. Anytime you miss a three, you're giving up a rebound. If they put him in the game, I hope that Kerr keeps the Splash Brothers going. But have him hanging around the basket for a missed basket and then put it back. That make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, no, I really think, Charlton, you want to bring him away from the basket. If you put Boogie Cousins in the game, and I don't expect for him to start tonight, Charlton, I expect for him to be a role player.
Yeah.
I don't expect to see Kevin Durant at all in this series, Charlton. Kevin Durant has an Achilles strain. It's not a calf strain. It's an Achilles strain. It's easy to tell the calf instead of the Achilles.
Yeah.
Through the media. They're all speculating and guessing regardless. But if you take Boogie Cousins away from the basket, what does that do? That creates backdoor opportunities. What have the Warriors been doing throughout the playoffs? Getting to the rim when they get the big man out of the middle. That's what it creates by taking Boogie Cousins. If you put him out there on the arc, Charlton, you take the big man out of the middle. You allow Steph Curry, who gets to the rim with ease, Charlton.
Yeah.
And you also have Draymond Green and Klay Thompson that have always been able to do that.
Yep.
So I think, as far as the big man mentality on offense, you don't want him around the basket. On defense, you want him in the paint. that's going to be the greatest asset for them. But when I look at the composite of these two teams, if you recall when Steve Kerr took over the Golden State Warriors, they brought in Andre Iguodala, a former All-Star with the Philadelphia 76ers, one of the top defensive players in the NBA. And that helped solidify the team. Matter of fact, he was the Finals MVP that first year, Charlton.
Yeah.
Same type of player that Kawhi Leonard is, Charlton. Former All-Star defensive player, Finals MVP previously.
Yep.
But, the role that he has played with Toronto has been unselfish. And the way that these teams have been built, Golden State mainly had built through the draft in their first run in the playoffs, Charlton. Toronto has built this team through trades.
Yes.
You think Pascal Siakam is the only player in the starting five for Toronto that was drafted by the organization. Everyone else came by a trade. Kyle Lowry came by a trade. Kawhi Leonard, Gasol came by a trade.
Yeah.
So and Denny Green came by a trade. So when you look at how these teams have been put together, the Golden State Warriors are more solidified. I mean, everybody has them as odds-on favorite to win the tournament. But when you take a bunch of misfits, like your buddies out there used to do, Al Davis, you bring together a bunch of misfits, all of a sudden they have a chip on their shoulder, Charles.
Yeah.
That nobody cared for them where they were. Now they've all come together as a collective unit, and you see where they are. They're in the NBA Finals now.
In the NBA Finals. Let me take you to the West Coast, because it's almost like anything that's good, sometimes you can take it for granted. It could be a job, it could be a relationship, it could be anything that people just take for granted that it's always going to be there. I still remember the days what they call Run TMC back in the day with Golden State, and that team was exciting, but they didn't win anything. It was always the Lakers. Now that as the ocean tide goes in and out, it's flowing high in Northern California. High tide, Northern California last 5 years. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, as you mentioned, Iguodala, and everybody else. They're 31-1 in their last 32 games with Klay Thompson and Curry without Durant. So all that talk about Durant making them better, based on numbers, not necessarily, but based on image, yeah, who would want a 7-footer that can drop it from any place on the floor? But I still think when something's going right, you don't mess with the chemistry. And I want to get your feeling. There are a lot of players who maybe won't be a household name if they go to another team, because you can be a guy like Kevon Looney with the Warriors, and people tend to know who he is. You could be a great player in another team someplace else, and you're watching TV when the playoffs are on. Give me your feeling about what player may emerge, like an Andre Iguodala, for Golden State that can come off the bench, because you can't tire out your first team. Mix of your thoughts.
Well, we've seen that throughout the playoffs. If you look at the last 6 games that the Warriors played, it has been by committee. I commend Steve Kerr on what he's done rotation-wise with the players, Charlton. He is just going on gut feeling.
Yeah.
He's looking down the bench. He's looking at a player, seeing his intensity as he's sitting on the bench. And so I need that in the lineup.
Yeah.
And the players have come into the lineup. So that's the thing about Golden State, is that you can't put your finger on one player. It could be McKinney.
Yeah.
It could be Livingston. It could be Iguodala. It could be anybody, Charlton, that they bring off the bench. It could be Clark.
Yeah.
They can bring 5 players off the bench and get productivity. Bogert, who knows? He may play a huge role in this finals, Charlton.
Yeah.
So the thing that the Warriors have developed is depth. That's what people don't give them credit for. They give them credit for having a couple of all-stars in the starting lineup.
Yeah.
But what this has done is galvanize the team by building depth through the injury of Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is great because when you set up your offense and things are not working, you can always throw the ball out to Durant. He can knock down that 30-foot jump shot for you because nobody can cover it.
Yep, that's true.
So he was always a safety net that any team in the NBA would want to have.
Yeah.
But he's even better with a winning team as he's been with the Golden State Warriors. Now that he hasn't been in the lineup, Charlton, all of those role players play their roles. They don't sit back and wait on Kevin to knock down the big shot.
Right.
They put maximum effort in. You talked about Looney. You think about how he's played in the 6 games, Charlton.
Yeah.
Since Durant has been out. He's been a stalwart in the middle. You think about Bell. Bell has been an exciting, explosive player.
Yes.
So this is what the injury of Kevin Durant has done to the Golden State Warriors. It has made everybody step up and play a larger role.
Let me get your thoughts on how good Golden State is. People are saying And odds makers in Vegas, they know what they're doing. It's probably going to be a 6-game series. Golden State will win it, most likely Game 6, back at the Oracle, which would be the third game that they could possibly have in this series. Game 6, Golden State Warriors, Oracle Arena. And that would make sense for the people on my side of life who tell me about the prop bet and all that stuff. But I don't want to see a sweep, and I don't think we're going to see a sweep. We're not going to see it in the NHL. I don't think we're going to see it in the NBA. But if you take away Kawhi Leonard, no one's given Toronto even a chance, Big C. Right now, Vegas says they're about 35% chance. Could you imagine taking the best player, Durant, off your roster and still having a 65% chance to win an NBA title? Has Steph Curry, remember that movie, How Stella Got a Groove Back, Angela Bassett back in the day? Has Steph Curry and Klay Thompson gotten their groove back now that they don't have the big 7-footer to hang around, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it'd be hard pressed to say that they ever lost their groove. You got to understand that they sacrificed their game to allow Kevin Durant to flourish in the system.
Yeah.
That's having unselfish teammates. We saw the same thing with LeBron James when he was in Miami. Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, All-Stars, Ray Allen. They sacrificed their game to allow LeBron James to flourish.
Yes.
When the ultimate goal of a team is to win a championship, Charlton, you don't have the selfishness.
Right.
You don't have a situation in Houston where James Harden has to have the basketball all the time.
Yeah.
You don't have a situation like you'd have in Philadelphia where there was a fight for the basketball, Charlton.
Yeah.
These are the things that you look at. You saw Portland. Portland could have beat Golden State.
Yep.
If they had allowed Lillard to keep scoring.
Yeah.
But Damian Lillard wanted the ball.
Yeah.
Leonard.
Big tall white
he
dude,
had a
yeah.
record game, Charlton.
Yeah.
His best game as a pro. He had taken any shots in the second half.
Nope.
Where have we seen that before? The thing was called a Super Bowl with Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, your friend.
When Antonio Freeman was gashing
7
the
yards
New
to
England
carry.
Patriots.
Yep.
Matt Ryan wouldn't let him have the ball anymore.
Yeah.
Same thing with Portland. Damian Lillard wouldn't let Leonard have the ball anymore.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the game is over. You got to go with your hot hand, and that's what I mean about having players that are unselfish.
Yeah.
When Kevin Durant was hot, there was nobody taking the ball away from him.
No.
Matter of fact, they kept feeding him.
Yeah.
Let him go. Let him go. When Steph Curry's hot now, they keep feeding Steph.
Yeah.
This is the thing about this team. I mean, a lot of people forget. Klay Thompson had a couple of 50-point games during the season.
Sure did.
They kept feeding Klay Thompson.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to see Klay score.
Yeah.
Even when Steph had the 50-point game, they fed him. Kevin Durant had the 50-point game. You think about it, you have 3 teammates that have 50-point games during the regular season.
That's amazing.
Why? Because you're on a team that's unselfish.
Yep.
They're not sitting there worried about egos, Charlton. They like that thing called W.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question. Because we love Canada, our home and native land. What must them good old boys up north, what must they do other than get Draymond Green kicked out of the game? Because he might like to kick people south of the border, but I think his mama's gotten to him and listened to him. What must Toronto do? Because things can happen where all it takes is one team to get hot at the end of the game. You don't want to have the ball in Kawhi Leonard's hands. But if there is a roadmap for them, like the Underground Railroad back in the day, what's that Underground Railroad way for Toronto to win a championship? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the first thing they got to do is remind Steph Curry this is not a home game.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's the first thing they got to do because his wife, Aisha, she's from Toronto.
From Toronto, yeah.
So all the family's going to be there from both sides. From her side and his side.
Yeah.
So this is like a home game for him. He's going to be comfortable. It's not a typical road game. And you got to realize how comfortable that will make Steph Curry.
Yeah.
That he has his in-laws and his parents at this game, Charlton.
Yep.
So it's like a home game to him. So, Toronto has to find a way to make him uncomfortable.
Yeah.
They got to find somebody that's going to stick on Steph Curry defensively.
Yep.
That's going to be the key because when you look at this rotation offense, Steph Curry gets off a shot in less than 2 seconds whenever he comes off the screen. When he's rolling, he gets the ball in his hand, he spots up. Klay Thompson does the same thing.
Yep.
These are the things that Toronto's going to have to do defensively. They're going to have to get them off of their spot. They can't let them sit there and float around the arc because all of a sudden you got 2 guys that can knock down 30 points on you. That's going to be the Achilles heel for Toronto if they can't get them off the arc, Chelsea.
Let me ask you your thoughts on. I mean, this is a big deal because it's USA versus Canada. We've seen it in hockey. We've seen it in soccer. We've seen it in different things. USFL, NHL, etc. Major League Baseball. If you can give me your feeling for what do the Golden State Warriors remind you of? What team do they remind you of over the last maybe 30, 40 years? And then what team does Toronto remind you of over, say, the last 30, 40 years? Because oftentimes the history will repeat itself. And I see what I don't want to see because I'm a West Coast guy. I saw the time that Detroit was picked to get swept by the Lakers. But Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal were having some personal issues, and it bled over into the team. And that's why they lost. What reminds you, these two teams, do they remind you of any teams that met in the past, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at where the Warriors are, the state of mind of the team and the franchise, Charlton, there's been nothing like them really in the last 20, 25 years. Every team in the NBA has wanted to do what the Warriors are doing right now.
Yeah.
It's just to dominate a league, to make this many appearances in a championship. I guess the only team that would be close to that would be LeBron James, who made 8 consecutive appearances in the championship. I mean, it was with 2 teams, but he made 8 consecutive appearances. So that's the only thing that will match what the Golden State Warriors have done. When I look at Toronto is just the next team up when it comes to the championship. I mean, this is the first time that, the Warriors haven't played the Cleveland Cavaliers in a championship series.
Yeah.
Think about that. 4 consecutive years, those teams played each other for the NBA title. So now this is rare, situation for the Warriors. Now they got to sit up and say, okay, how do we handle this situation in Toronto? We're going to a foreign country to start with.
Yeah.
So, hopefully nobody got caught at customs with anything, because they come from California. Well, they flew private, so they wouldn't have to come through customs to get their bags checked out. I don't know if they had any dogs around sniffing or whatever.
Wow.
So, that's the one thing with them. But when you look at these two teams, Charlton, they're totally polar opposites from the way that they were built. And structured, with their players through draft, through free agency and trades. This is what the difference in these teams are. Golden State has been there. All the pressure is on Toronto. Even though Kawhi Leonard has been in the championship, Serge Ibaka has been in the championship series before, Charlton.
Yes.
Is that going to be enough to keep this team calm? And I know they're going to lean hard on Leonard.
Yep.
But what will Serge Ibaka do, Charlton? Will his past experience being a teammate of Kevin Durant help him out here in the finals?
I want to get another thought on something, and it's not something that people think about too much. But Dennis Rodman back in the day. Dennis Rodman.
Party with him. Well, no, I know him like you said.
Yeah, you know it. Let's leave it at that. So, it's funny, but sometimes you need a bad guy. Bill Laimbeer, that good a boy for Detroit, he was a bad guy, and he knew it, and he was proud of it. D-Rod, he was a bad guy, and he knew it, and he was proud of it. Ron Artest at one time, he was that bad guy. Does Toronto have a bad guy that's willing to not care about himself and throw a hard elbow on somebody? Because, and I know people say you want fair and love and war, but when you're in a baseball game, pitchers pitch at batters all the time, and we'll talk about that coming up. And guys fight because they're not trying to go there and lose. And I want to get your feeling, is there a bad guy? We know Draymond is for Golden State. Does Toronto have anyone with that mentality, or do they want to be nice because they're Canadian, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, no, the NBA doesn't have that mentality anymore. You talked about Draymond changing his ways.
Yeah.
The NBA has stopped all the bad boy mentality. The game is not physical like it used to be, Charlton.
Yeah.
They've eliminated the hard fouls because you automatically get a technical and the other team gets the ball back. There's no hesitation. I mean, you talk about bad boys. You think about Kevin McHale, Kurt Rambis. These guys, Rick Mahorn.
Oh, yeah, really bad.
You know, Charles Oakley was tough.
Yeah.
All teams had these guys, Charlton, but it's been banished from the NBA because the league is about scoring and protecting its player. The product is what they're concerned about.
Yeah.
Back in those days, Charlton, it was nothing to see an NBA game in the 90s, okay?
Yeah.
You saw some in the 80s. But now, Charlton, if you're not scoring triple digits, 110, 112 points a game, you're not in an NBA game.
Yeah.
So those physical players, Charlton, have been removed from the league, and that style of play is no longer there.
Yeah.
And so you're going to see a clean game. There's hard fouls periodically, but if you get a hard foul in the playoffs, you're getting this technical, all of a sudden you put yourself in peril as far as being suspended for a game.
Yep.
No player wants to hurt his organization like that.
Well, I'm looking forward to a good game. I know it's already underway. We don't give out scores. But I do want to see the NBA really show the sports universe what sports is all about. We're going to come up with what's called the Big C pause. And we're going to come back and talk about a few more things. NHL, also what's going on. You know, the college football schedule came out, and there's a lot of good things. And I know we've been talking about a lot. We'll take the Big C pause and come right back in just a moment, and we hope that you'll come back and join us also as well. All right, Big C, we are back after the Big C pause on the Big C Sports Network. You can follow Big C Sports Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. on the iHeartRadio Network, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. You can find us on the Spreaker, on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify and Comcast Xfinity. I know they're working on the stream with that. But also, if you have that device in your home called Alexa, you can say, Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast, and it will bring up the show for you. And as you're bringing it up, please keep in mind, if you have veterans or even anyone going through some crisis, we have a crisis hotline. Anyone can use it. It's toll-free, 800-273-8255, 800-273-8255, or you can text. A lot of people like to text nowadays, 838-255, that's 838-255. Big C, have you ever noticed sometimes you can be upstairs, one of your kids may want to ask you a question. Instead of calling you, they text. That make any sense? Your thoughts?
I've had those texts, Charlton, but they don't answer. It's like dead air. And I'll get asked, did you get my text? No, I live here.
That's funny. I think that's incredible because it happens sometimes. But this funny commercial, it was Steph Curry telling his young daughter to hold daddy's rings. And the little girl looked at him like, what rings? But anyway, could you imagine giving your championship rings to your young child? That's a lot of trust. I'm sure if she can't find them, she'll text Daddy, I can't find your rings. You won't tell him things. That make any sense?
Well, Charlton, they go in the toy box to the bottom because of the weight of them. They're going to fall right to the bottom with all those dolls and everything.
Yep. Well, speaking of falling to the bottom, the St. Louis Blues, they avoided the Blues last night. And they had to do it in a big way. It took overtime. But it showed you the moxie of that team out of St. Louis that a lot of people wrote off, Big C. They had an NHL Stanley Cup Finals. They evened the series 1-1 with the Boston Bruins. 3-2 in overtime. And they needed every little score they could get, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the Blues even up the series, Charlton. But the thing that they did last night, they took the physicality to Boston.
Yeah.
That's where they had the advantage. Although they took some unwarranted penalties, Charlton, that's the thing that they're going to really have to protect against going back home to St. Louis.
Yeah.
But the physicalness of the game is what Boston could not withstand last night, Charlton. Took the game into overtime. The Blues outshot Boston last night, Charlton, in this game 38-27.
Yeah.
That's the difference. You got to put the putt on the net, Charlton. If you're not taking the shots, you don't have a chance to win.
Yep.
When they got to overtime, they outshot Boston 8-0.
Yeah.
And hit the game-winning goal, Charlton, eventually to lift them to the 3-2 victory in overtime.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that the Blues were last night. They were aggressive.
Yeah, they have to.
And, they sent some players out there. Matter of fact, Boston's going to lose one of their wingers he's in concussion protocol.
Yeah.
He's not going to make the trip to St. Louis. But this is a style of hockey that St. Louis has to continue with. They have to rattle the Boston Bruins, Charlton, because this is a team that was fresh.
Yeah.
They had that 11 days off. And so they needed to be punished just a little bit, Charlton, to bring them back down to earth.
Yeah, I think that brought them down to earth. But ironically, St. Louis, the New played there. They have some great Hall of Famers, but they played better on the road than they have at home. But the playoffs might be a little bit different. If the Blues can get just one game, they don't have to win both. If they can get one game, they are so close to forcing us to a game 7 because they're better on the road. Now, that may sound dumb to say who wants to play on the road, but why does it work that they're a better team on the road than at home, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, just playing the game. I mean, you think about it, if you haven't been in a championship series in 40 years, you talk about the Toronto Raptors haven't been in it in 24 years. The St. Louis Blues hadn't been in it in 49 years, twice as long.
Yeah.
So when you think about the uneasiness, the nervousness, Charlton, of this team, and Boston had their 9-game winning streak broke last night.
Yeah.
This was the hottest team in the NHL.
Yeah.
The Blues were lucky to get to the playoffs if you look at their status, January 2nd.
Yep.
Last place in the NHL. So I think when you got a lot of young players, Charlton, they're like, wow, we made the Stanley Cup.
We're here now.
They got up 2 goals early in game 1, Charlton.
Yeah.
and they thought the game was over. All of a sudden, Boston reared back. They got up. They scored two more goals in this game, Charlton, in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, they were pushed into overtime. So I think that's a wake-up call for the Blues when you think about it, that they know that they can withstand the best that Boston had. They were able to take them into overtime and edge out a victory.
Yeah, and it's incredible. They took them overtime to get it, but they got it done, and I'm looking forward to them extending that series. I know a lot of people thought it'd be a sweep, and we said it would not be a sweep. Now, it might be a sweep +1, but I don't think it's not a sweep, so good job on predicting that, Big C. I want to jump down to the University of Stanford University. I know you're hard on the Pac-12 teams, Big C, and I know maybe you have a right to be after USC beat Arkansas. I think it was 70-17 back in the day. That was a long time ago, but we'll take whatever win we can get at Pete Carroll and beat those mighty Arkansas Razorbacks back in the day. And they also jumped on Auburn 23-0. You know, I got to go back to 2004 and 2005 when I talk about Pac-12 dominance over the SEC. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I don't think there's anybody left from playing football from those days.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I don't even think you can find the coaches in the program anymore. But you know, that's one of the things that you guys have on the West Coast. You got a lot of time to reminisce because you're not winning. So you got to think about things that used to be.
Yeah, well, I also remember it was back in the 70s when Paul Bear Bryant took on John McKay, USC Trojan. It was Sam Cunningham that made the SEC integrate. He said, I got to get me some of them. And he wasn't talking about Nike shoes, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, when you think about when we talk about national championships in football, Charlton, has there been one in the West Coast any time in the past 10 years or so? In the past decade?
Well, see, there you are with your facts again, Big C.
I'm not trying to thumb you in any kind of way. I'm just asking. You know, they probably do like I do. You know, when the national championship game is on, they get back in the easy chair and watch it.
They're like Steph Curry. They told somebody hold my rings from the 2005 or 2004 USC team. But I want to congratulate Stanford. They win the NCAA golf championships. It was the Pac-12 defeating Texas. So Texas knocked off USC back in the Rose Bowl. Why did Reggie Bush toss the ball forward? There's still some good old boys in Southern California wondering why did Reggie on the 20-yard line push the ball forward when he already won about 40 yards? They would have easily scored, Big C. And I say we got to get over it, Big C. I think that's what you've been trying to say. But congratulations, Stanford, a win over Texas. And it was golf, not macho, but we'll take it, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, Stanford has always had a dominant golf program. You think about that. That's Tiger Woods' alma mater. That's also Nota Begay's alma mater, golf. All-Americans, Charlton, and PGA players. So when you think about golf, you think about just the academics of the University of Stanford.
Yeah.
Every athlete at Stanford has to be accepted academically prior to getting a scholarship.
Yep.
So you think about the proud heritage of that university. Not only do they have great athletes, Charlton, they have some of the most intelligent athletes in the world. Yeah,
I remember being down on the farm. It's really where I covered my first college football game. It was Arizona State versus the Stanford Cardinal, and it was a great event. I think there was Jake was his name. He was a quarterback for Arizona State Sun Devils.
Jake Plummer?
Jake Plummer. I knew you would know Jake Plummer. He was doing his thing back in the day, but that was a great experience. That was before they revamped the stadium from 84,000 down to about 52,000. But congratulations, Stanford.
Well, should they cut that in half?
No, they sell out every now and then when they have the big game. But congratulations, Stanford. I know it's always great to bring a trophy to your school. The University of Memphis and head coach Penny Hardaway and the University of Michigan and coach, Juwan Howard, they make the NCAA tournament within the next 2 years. How would it change the landscape of coaching in college basketball? And I know if they can just do what John Thompson did back in the day with the Georgetown Hoyas, that would be great for basketball. But would it really increase opportunities for men of color to get jobs, Bixie? Your thoughts?
I really do think that it will, Charlton. When you think about Penny Hardaway, he became the head coach of his alma mater, Memphis, last season, Charlton. Had a 20-win season, made it to the NIT. And Juwan Howard, one of the Fab members of the Fab Five, Charlton, today being introduced finally as the new head coach of the University of Michigan.
Yeah.
Now, if these two players, Charlton, can go in and change the landscape of college basketball, this would lend credence to why more African Americans should get Division I head coaching positions, Charlton, instead of you dealing with the cronyism that has always been passed down.
Yep.
It shows that they'll be able to recruit, that they'll be able to coach. You think about Penny Hardaway at Memphis. He has a top 5 recruiting class, Charlton, in his second year as a head coach on a major college level. He surpassed most of the guys that were in the tournament last year. When you think about that, Charlton, a top 5 class as far as recruiting. Juwan Howard is going to get all the help that he can, Charlton, from his Fab 5 teammates. They're going to lend a hand to go out and be ambassadors for the University of Michigan. Think about Chris Webber, Jalen Rose. These guys are on national broadcast doing NBA games, Charlton.
Yes.
These are great spokespersons for the University of Michigan, great friends of Juwan Howard. Spent years toiling in the NBA as an assistant and a player, Charlton. Served his dues. And the day he hired Phil Martell, former St. Joe's head coach who's coached there for 24 years. This is going to be his bench coach. So not only did he go get the job, Charlton, he went out and got one of the geniuses of the game. The young bringing in the old to learn, Charlton. So he's going to have success at Michigan, Charlton. And I hope this opens many doors for many young African Americans who aspire to be head coaches on D1 level.
You know, I'm reminded of the great John Thompson, and then Nolan Richardson at Arkansas. John Thompson, of course, at Georgetown. Nolan Richardson. Both of those teams, they were able to do what Jerry Tarkanian was able to do when he was down there at UNLV. Also had some success doing the same thing at Long Beach State and then Fresno State. He was able to get a lot of kids that maybe people gave up on, and he believed in them and taught them how to think like a winner, Big C, and gave them that opportunity. And it's ironic that oftentimes that coaching profile, because we have such a good old boy network, and Big C Sports will shout it out every time we can. We'll shout down racism, sexism, discrimination, all that garbage. And anything we say, we want you to Google it because it's true. They can change it. But it's amazing how guys like Nolan Richardson and John Thompson had success, won national championships. And oftentimes, even with that, you would think that would be a great roadmap, but it really wasn't, Big C. How can Howard and Penny Hardaway change that? Your thoughts?
Well, what they can do, Charlton, they're not that far removed from the game when you think about in years. They're not old men. They're middle-aged, Charlton. But they also have the the NBA experience behind them. So they can speak in volume about what it takes to get to the league, what it takes to survive in the league. Because they participated. They also have inroads, Charlton, because they know people in the league. So that's a great asset to have as a coach, that you can bring players in, the young men out of high school, and say, look, I know what it takes because I had to go this road in college, and I know how much time you should spend in college to get to the NBA. If you're trying to jump early, they can actually tell a guy, Charlton, he's not ready. Because they can tell him what he's going to go up against. Not only that, they can bring in former teammates from the pro level, Charlton, and have them talk to players. So they have great insight, Charlton. But the first and foremost is that they'll look like most of the players that they recruit.
And I hope that makes a difference. I have a couple of sports agent friends and that happen to be African American, and they'll tell me how challenging, how there's a challenge, Big C, because it takes about $10,000 to come to it. Even when you come out of law school, not everybody has that kind of money. You got to pay your way into a system, and there's an oligarchy of power, and that's why LeBron James' agent gets in trouble. You can't really infiltrate them because they've been friends for forever. But that opportunity, whether it's coaching, whether it's in the sports agent industry, whether it's in broadcast, it has to be men who are in it to open those doors. Quit waiting for mainstream to open it. You got to open it, and I hope those young men will do that same thing. I want to turn our head real quick to Major League Baseball, and I say head for a reason. We know there was an incident that happened in Major League Baseball recently. Even the Dodgers had it last year where a lady was hit by a ball, and I think she was celebrating her anniversary, and she passed away from it. Not really world news, but it's there. And then there's a young girl that got hit last night and really shook up a lot of players. Even when I saw it, I just couldn't watch it. They need a net that goes from foul pole to foul pole. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, the net scenario has always been objective. It was a team decision in Major League Baseball how much netting that they would put around the arena, Charlton. I think this is something that Rob Manfred has to step up and make it mandatory and make it immediate, Charlton. Mandatory and immediate. You can't leave it arbitrarily up to each team.
Yeah.
And people say, well, it's going to interfere on the experience.
No, it won't.
You tell me anybody who has gone to a ballpark and they say, look, I got you seats behind home plate. And they're going to say, well, I don't want to sit behind home plate because it robs me of the experience because they have the netting up there.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be obstructed. It's not, Charlton. And it's twofold when you're looking at the netting situation. As a responsible parent, why would you put your child in harm's way? That's number one. And I'm not saying we don't need the nets. The nets are warranted in Major League Baseball. But as a parent, why don't you put yourself between the child and home plate? So if a ball is coming, at least you might be able to deflect it, or you might be able to move your child out of harm's way. Also, Charlton, the social things that we do in a baseball stadium nowadays, people are not all paying attention to the game, Charlton. They have their cell phones in their hands. They're texting. They don't pay attention to what's going on. But the netting is warranted and is needed. I mean, you think about a hockey game. If you watch the Stanley Cup playoffs, there's netting all the way around, Charlton, to protect the fans from those hard pucks that come up off the ice and fly into the stands. Fans have been hit with the hockey pucks and also lost their lives, Charlton. That's the reason why the NHL mandated the screen all the way around the ice, Charlton. Fans get used to it. They get used to it. Like I said, baseball has always had the screen and the netting behind home plate. And there's never been anybody complain that sits behind home plate.
No.
So putting it down the foul line, Charlton, to avoid injury. And also, when you're avoiding injury with the fans, you also got to think, how are you going to protect the players? There was a pitcher just 2 nights ago, Charlton, that had to save his own life. That's the reflex. He had to lean back, Charlton, in the limbo position and catch the ball as it was right at his chin. Otherwise, it would have taken his jaw off. So baseball is a very hazardous game. The thing about the balls now, Charlton, is that they come off the bat at a much more rapid pace than what they did 30, 40 years ago, even 50 years ago. That ball last night coming off the bat probably was traveling in excess of 120 miles an hour. It's hard for anybody, adult or child, to react to that. So let's not put them in harm's way any longer, Rob Manfred. Mandate next week, have the nets up. I'm quite sure that there's a manufacturer somewhere, Charlton, that can put those nets together in a couple days, and they can be put up in all the ballparks in a couple days. Even though these are isolated incidents, Charlton, it's not worth having another isolated incident in Major League Baseball.
No, that's very well said. You brought up the thing about hockey, and there's a glass around hockey. It keeps people safe. We all need it.
There's a net up above the glass in hockey.
That's true. I'm glad the young girl is recovering, from what I understand. And you just don't. We can stop it. We don't have to wait for another year. And again, the family with the Dodger game last year. The lady passed away, hit by a ball. No one talks about it because they don't want to bring negative attention to it. But we know we have to do better than that. I also want to talk about, when we think about the world of the NFL, that it never really goes away. And I know we talk about safety and how we could keep players safe. NFL wants to expand regular season to 18 games after the 2020 season collective bargaining agreement runs out. Now, I thought they just had this CTE issue when they want to cut down the exposure to brain trauma. Well, if you play extra 2 regular season games, you don't have guys playing a quarter like you do in preseason. You're exposing people to 3 more quarters, actually 6, because most guys might start for 1 quarter in the preseason game, but they're going to play all 4 in the regular season. Isn't that anathema to this rule of keeping players safe? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's all about money. But when a player realizes he's going to make more money, he's going to accept that. And that's the NFL is going to go to the 18 games, Charlton. It's a far-gone conclusion. It's about negotiations to get there. What is the league going to give back to the players? What is the Roger Goodell going to give back to the players? Is it going to be less strenuous drug testing? Is it going to be less strenuous on the suspensions? Instead of getting a 6-game suspension on something that they have no evidence on, just hearsay? Is that just going to be waived, Charlton? The CTE issue, it's always going to be issue. But what about the CDB issue, Charlton? How are they going to handle the cannabis when it comes to this on pain? It's going to go there because you're talking about adding a few more $1 billion to the coffer of the NFL. The networks, broadcasting more games, Charlton. The NFL is big as anything that there is. Will the preseason still be 4 games, or will they reduce that down to 2 or 3 games?
They would have to reduce it eventually.
That has to be part of the negotiations also.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a give and take. The players are going to want more health coverage, Charlton, once they retire.
Yeah.
They're going to want that extended beyond the 5-year threshold that they have now.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of negotiations on the table. When you're talking about one of the biggest businesses in the U.S., Charlton, and the employees are what drive that business, if they add 2 games, are you going to get 2 extra paychecks, or is that contract going to be extended for that?
Yeah.
So all of these things come into play. So this is not an easy scenario where the owners will win. The players will win also by going to 18 games.
Yeah, and we hope that, there's a lot of issues in the NFL. The Seahawks, they sued McDowell. He wants $800,000 bonus back. And Thomas is looking good and come back with the Ravens. The Browns are eager for a good dose of Odell Beckham Jr. There's a lot of talk about he runs his mouth a lot. I think he still performs. And unfortunately, there's a Buffalo Bill linebacker facing domestic violence-related charges as the NFL is still trying to find a way to make more money. And people have their on-the-field and off-the-field, issues. And I don't know how to fix all of it, Big C. I just know that we'll continue to advocate for good things in the world of the NFL and not just walk away from it just because we have some issues with certain players. I want to just get to the thought. Tonight we have Major League Baseball. It's not the biggest schedule in town. And we know a lot of people, we just talked about how you got to get that net up. You don't want to have anyone else being injured just because we say, well, we need to put it up to a vote and we have to have lawyers come in and give us their point of view and we need to put up to I don't want to see a vote. I want to see by June, that's just a couple of days away, have a net in everybody's stadium. They do it when it rains, they bring the tarp out. I hope we see that. Tonight's Major League Baseball action, Milwaukee at Pittsburgh, Minnesota at Tampa Bay, Kansas City at Texas. Them good boys are throwing some fists, or thinking about it anyway, throwing the balls at each other. I don't like that for baseball. Cleveland at Chicago, the White Sox. The New York Mets, 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 at the beat LA Dodgers. And they've been beating them down, Big C. The Angels of Anaheim, Los Angeles Anaheim Angels at Seattle. And then matchup game St. Louis at Philadelphia, San Francisco at Miami, Arizona, Colorado, and Boston at New York. Give me your feeling again. How do the players feel about the net, Big C? Because we could say as media we need it. But do the players, do they want that too? I think they would say yes now, but will they feel the same in 2 weeks, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I think it's something that the players have always looked at as the safety of the fans because there's been a multitude of fans that have been injured throughout the history of the game. But they're also concerned about their own safety, Charlton. How do you protect the pitcher when that ball, he's only 60 feet away from that ball, Charlton, coming off the bat at 120 miles an hour? You also got to look at the safety of players with pitchers throwing at players, Charlton. What Major League Baseball needs to do, as well as putting up the net, if you throw at a player, Charlton, then you automatically get a 2-game suspension.
Yeah.
You want to make all these other things unwritten rules? Make it a written rule in baseball. If you intentionally throw at a player, Charlton, at his head,
yep.
These pitchers are accurate. They don't miss when they're throwing somewhere. If they're throwing at a player, you automatically get a 2-game suspension. Major League Baseball needs to change a lot of its modus operandi and make the game safer in every aspect.
Yeah, and I would love to see that happen, but do you think it will? Because, let's be honest, people pay attention. I know when someone runs onto the field, they don't show it anymore. But whenever there's a fight on the football field, the networks focus on that fight. I remember the Dallas Cowboys and the 49ers, they would always fight during playoff games. And the Raiders fought everybody. They didn't even fight themselves, Big C. But part of TV, they want to see when someone charges a mound. I think it was the great Roger Clemens that put some good old boy in a headlock that charged him. Yeah, I might be wrong about Roger Clemens, but I know it was a boy from Texas that did it, Big C. Your thoughts? And they loved it.
Well, that's part of the unwritten rules of baseball. Just like in hockey, where you try to curtail the violence in hockey, where you cut down on the fighting a lot. Baseball can control anything they want. Every sport has a control, and it's called a fine and a suspension.
Yeah.
Whenever you want to enact those as part of your sport, to clean up your sport, to make it about the game. There's no fighting in baseball that's going to help anybody. And 99% of the time, Jonathan, everybody's waiting on somebody to grab them.
Yeah.
So that they don't have to throw a punch. Grab me. They're circling around just waiting for somebody to tackle them.
Yeah.
They're trying not to throw a punch because you break a finger.
Yeah.
How are you going to back? How are you going to throw, Charlton?
Yeah.
This is what baseball players face, so they're really not trying to fight. But the league has to discourage any action that's looking in that direction.
Yeah, they have to do that, Big C. And speaking of that, I know we have, in this great world of competition, I really miss when they would let the fan, and I know they can't do it now, so I'm not naive, but I remember watching the Celtics win a championship with Larry Bird back in the 80s. And they had Johnny Moyes, Larry Bird, there's the ball, Bird. You know, the Celtics won, they beat Detroit, etc. Isaiah Thomas knows what I'm talking about. But the crowd at Boston Garden, they swarmed the floor, Big C. Even back in the day when Hank Aaron, hit that home run that set the home run record, people rolled out on the court, on the baseball field, and it was part of the theater that we love. Seeing that growing up, I miss that, but I know because everybody gets too happy now. If a player punches somebody, you got a lawsuit because a fan may try to grab them out of a hug, but they might perceive that as a threat. Do you miss that when the fans could be that intimately involved? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I really don't, because society has changed in many ways, and you got to think about the player's safety. Putting a player in peril just for a fan to come down and grab them, Charlton.
Yeah.
This is the reason why you have excessive security in these arenas, Charlton. You have security standing there protecting their announcers. Don't worry about the players, the announcers.
Yeah.
But, when you think about overzealous fans, Charlton, fans will do anything. I go back to Monica Seles when she was stabbed in the back by a fan leaning over the rail at a tennis match.
Yeah.
At that point, it let the society and the world know that fans should not be reaching into the arena.
Yeah.
It's like the NBA has already sent word to Toronto that Drake has to pump his brakes.
Yeah.
He's got to keep his butt in his seat.
Yeah.
Because you're coming out interacting with a player or a coach, you're automatically supposed to be evicted from the arena, Charlton.
Yeah.
He got a pass because of who he was. But when you make contact with a player, this is what we had with Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
This is what we've had with Ron Artest in Detroit, the Malice at the Palace.
Yep.
We've had this on several occasions with players getting into it with fans.
Yeah.
Drake should have been exit out of the arena when he put his hands on Nick Nurse, regardless of who he is.
Yeah.
You can't give a superstar in social world a pass and not let the layman person, Charlton, because all of a sudden they're going to say, he did it, I can do it. And you never know what someone's intentions are.
Yeah, that's very true. And Tiger Woods doing his thing at the Memorial, shot 70 today. Not really big news. I think Spieth is in a good position to win that tournament. We'll talk more about golf tomorrow. I want to tell you can find the Big C Sports Network every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide on the iHeartRadio network, on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts. You can find us on Spreaker, Spotify, also YouTube. You can find us on Comcast Xfinity. But what I really love, when you walk in the house, if you have that box called Alexa, say, Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast, and then you'll hear our sponsors and the show comes up. So we thank everyone for their growth. I know that everybody heard it before. I want to repeat it again. If you know anyone going through a crisis, we have a hotline, 800-273-8255, 800-273-8255. Or you can text, especially for young people, let's stop the bullying, get people some help. You can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you know anyone going through some issues and they need some help, we want to make sure you get that help. And Big C Sports will also bring that out. So just so people can know, Big C, they don't have to do it on their own. I want to ask you, I know tonight, NBA Finals World Championship in Toronto, no matter who wins, I hope we see clean basketball where no prop betting comes in, where no one says that the game was given or lost because of the foul call. Do you have confidence in that, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I do, because this is the grandiosest of stages, and you got two countries that are going head to head. This is something we've never seen in the NBA. So history is being made tonight with the tip-off of this championship series, Charlton. So I think everybody will be on their best behavior. I think that the officials tonight will call this game close to the best, Charlton. I don't think that they want to be brought into the spotlight because the magnitude of this game tonight, being two countries, and like I said, Toronto's first time, but we have a lot of veterans, Charlton, that have played in the championship series. Danny Green has played in the championships. Serge Ibaka's played in the championship. Kawhi Leonard has played in championships. So it's not like Toronto doesn't have players that have not been in this point of the season before, Charlton, in the championship series.
Yep.
Golden State, we know of their legacy. So I'm expecting just great competitive basketball tonight.
Well, I look forward to it, and we hope that everybody has a great time. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Something I think I'm going to go put out the VHS tape and rewatch the hockey game from last night. I know many people don't know what a VHS is, but I recorded the name. I haven't learned how to Tebow anything. I thought that was a football player, Tebow. I'm really looking forward to game one of the NBA title tonight, Charlton. Just a great series between the Toronto Raptors and the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, well, I look forward to it, too. We hope that everybody will. And be safe. Please tell your friends, follow Big C Sports every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, as we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone, call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.